Have you ever had a one-shot spiral into chaos because you didn't have the time to get through everything, your players kept getting sidetracked, and everything bad that could happen did happen? Well, let's fix that. Here is how to create a one-shot adventure that your players will never forget. The stage was set, and I had the perfect one-shot prepared. A game of intrigue and mystery that critiqued high society and the rich elite. I was feeling very Brennan Lee Mulligan. Then, my players came to the table of my low magic, low combat RPG with an oblivious purse candy granny, a antisocial combat-based character, and some other joke character that I can't even recall at this point. Then, the players got sidetracked on things that were way outside of their objectives. They spent almost no time with the NPCs, which is designed to be most of the game. They spent plenty of time doing things that I was hinting for them not to do. At the end of the night, we had barely gotten through the thing, and the ending was thoroughly unsatisfactory because of lack of time. So how did this happen, and what can we do to make sure it doesn't happen to you? Well, I'm glad you asked. Today we're going to go over 5 things that you can do to make sure that your one-shots are the best they can be. The last one is the best, so make sure you stay tuned for that. But before we get into those 5 things, we do have to establish, what is a one-shot? A one-shot is a campaign, a full story arc that's meant to be played through in one sitting. If they're made to be played in one sitting, and most of us only have 3 to 4 hours in a session, that means we gotta get things moving. There's no time for dilly-dally or complex plots or NPCs with backstory on top of backstory on top of backstory built into an incredibly crafted world that your players can engage in ad infinitum. So, a lot of these things that we're going to talk about have to do with speeding things along and making sure that you can get through what you need to within the time allotted. Alright, let's get to that first thing. First, in order to make sure that we get through what we need to, we are going to talk about how to prep for a one-shot. And that is this. We're going to use what's called a 1-2-1 method. 1 intro, 2 obstacles, 1 showdown. Now what does all this mean? It means that you get some time to introduce what's happening, in which you kind of make no bones about it. You introduce what's going on. Usually we just assume the party knows each other. Usually they get a summons, and it's just accepted that they accept it. It is the contractual understanding of those at the table that they are playing in this one shot. So we can skip the whole, well, do you accept the mission? Do you not? Yes, they do. And we can push them through straight into what's going on. That's your intro. You have 2 obstacles. These are going to be your major turning points within the small campaign, this story arc that you're running. It could be a puzzle, it could be a combat, it could be a social interaction, it could be any number of things. But these are going to be your 2 main obstacles. Perhaps it's to cross a bit of terrain. Perhaps it is a sphinx that stands at the crossroads and tells weary travelers riddles. Whatever it is. These are going to be your 2 obstacles. And then finally, you've got 1 showdown at the end. This is going to be that kind of big, bad, evil guy that everybody wants to take down. And that can present itself in a number of ways. It doesn't have to be a literal combat. You could be preventing a natural disaster, or helping somebody retrieve their tea, or whatever. It could be any number of things, but this is your showdown. And with that 1-2-1 formula, you can use the time that you have allotted and break down exactly how much time you need in each section. If you have a 4-hour session, you've got an hour for your intro, an hour for each obstacle, and an hour for that showdown. If you've only got 3, you're going to split that up into 45-minute segments. Or give a little, take a little for how you want to structure your game. If you want a little less time on the intro, go for it. You want a little less time on that showdown, or a little more time on the showdown, allow for some more combat, or maybe a better designed outro, go for it. But use that time that you have to split up exactly how much time you need for each segment in this 1-2-1 formula. If you're enjoying this video, make sure that you give me some bardic inspiration, hit that like button, subscribe, and turn on the alerts so you hear the trumpet blowing every time the bard comes to the stage. Alright, with that out of the way, let's get on to the hardest part for me DMing one-shots. Make your clues easy. Like, make them easy in every way. If you're running mystery and intrigue, I get it. You're going to want to keep those things close to your chest. You want the reveal to be, impactful and this huge thing. I get it. I'm with you. But we both, as DMs, have to realize that our clues, to speed our players through this, have to be as easy as they can be. Make them clear. I like to make my clues very subtle. That doesn't work for one-shots. Make them abundant, give as many clues as you possibly can, and put them everywhere. Put them everywhere and in plain sight. But most importantly, make them non-essential. Allow space for your players to get through this one-shot without finding every clue that you've laid. If they have to get through every clue, if they have to pick through every garbage heap and find exactly the right piece of trash in each one, they're not going to get through the one-shot, and it's not going to be their fault. I often want my players to think I'm smart. And so I like to hold things from them as long as possible to make the reveal much more impactful. I like to give them, very obscure clues so that when they are revealed, everyone sees how smart I actually am. A one-shot is not the place to do things like this. That can be fine in some long-form campaigns, but never, ever one-shots. Make your clues clear, make them abundant, and make them non-essential. Alright, third, be flexible.
Well, I think you need to be more flexible.
You're gonna need to be flexible in one-shots. Like, you can't have a rigid thing that takes players exactly here, 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 and here, and expect the one-shot to go well. You're going to need to prepare way more than you need. Yeah, I know, I just said, 1, 2, 1, that's all you're going to need. And that's true, but if one of the two major obstacles is traversing a dangerous forest, then they might just breeze through the sinkholes that you set for them. So, you might have to set something else down the road. Blooms of noxious gas that cause the players to fall asleep or take poison damage. Drain some more of those resources. Have enough that if your players get through the hour segment in 10 minutes, you have more to throw at them. That way you can fill up the time allotted and your players aren't going to get through your 3-hour one-shot in an hour and 20 minutes. That said, the other part of flexibility is making sure that you allow yourself the freedom of not needing everything you've prepared. I understand that everything you've prepared is great and fantastic, and your players would be lucky to experience it. They would be the better for having gone through everything that you've prepared. However, if you try to make them experience everything, you'll end up with no time and a massively unsatisfactory ending, or no ending at all. Plus, you're cutting a great deal of pressure off of yourself by realizing that your players don't need to experience everything. Like, you don't have to make sure to micromanage everything they do and all the places they go and all the clues they find. Plus, if you don't use it, that's free material for later. Like, you can use that in another one-shot. You can use that in a campaign. You can use it wherever you like because the players haven't seen it yet. So, be flexible, and that means that you prepare more than you need, and you give yourself the freedom of knowing you won't need everything you've prepared, and that's okay. Fourth, now that we've got our 1-2-1 method, now that we know to make our clues easy, and we know to be flexible, we've got to know when to break these rules. The 1-2-1 formula is fantastic. However, sometimes you need a slightly more non-linear plot. You need a sandbox for a story you're wanting to tell, or you need a series of events that might happen in any way. not necessarily a linear storyline. Take the Alien one-shot we played not too long ago on Looking for Legends, Chariot of the Gods. I'll put it here in the cards somewhere, you can watch it. We didn't go through a plot. We had a world, we had this kind of sandboxed thing that we could go and explore as we pleased, and the challenges were inherent in the system and the way it played. Some of the challenge just came from the mechanics. Some of it came from the xenomorphs that were chasing us around. Some of it came from each other. And some of it came from the various things that we interacted with. This broke almost every rule that I just gave to you. However, it was such a good story and told so well. So know when to break the rules. And I'm not going to tell you when those things are. You'll feel that out as a GM. Know when to use the rules and know when to break them for your table, for your players, to tell the best stories that you can. Alright guys, I've had you wait till this moment to tell you that final piece of information that is really going to just bring all this together, and it's the most important thing that I could possibly say about TTRPGs in general, specifically one-shots. Talk to your players. Make sure that this is a one-shot that they want to play in. Make sure that you tell them the tone, you tell them what's going to be going on. Obviously, no spoilers, but give them the general idea and make sure that this is something that they want to do. Make sure it's something they're comfortable with, especially if you're playing something like a horror one-shot or experimenting with some of those darker themes. Tell your players. Make sure that they know and can communicate back with you what they want to do. Also, tell them that there's not much time. So, just tell them, let them know that you have to get through this thing in the time allotted. So, they may want to sit and interrogate the barkeep for an hour, but you gotta get through, and so you can't really do that unless that's what you prepped. In which, okay. Once again, tell your players what to expect. If there are lots of riddles, tell them to be ready for riddles. If it's a dungeon crawl with lots of combat and traps, make sure that they are prepared for that. If you're going to have lots of investigation, exploration, video game style key collection throughout the dungeon to make sure that you have all of them necessary for the end. NPC interactions, diplomacy. Tell them up front what these things are going to be so that they know. I did not communicate in that original story with my players. I brought up the idea that, there would be a lot of intrigue, but I didn't really express exactly how heavily this one-shot was going to rely on it. I also didn't really give them great expectations for the setting, or the RPG in general. I made my clues a little too obtuse, when they really should have been very, very acute. I was not very flexible. I tried to push them through every event that I had planned, and that really hindered what I was doing. My lack of communication, my lack of following the steps that I've laid out, is what led this one-shot to be thoroughly unsatisfactory. I've since run it with a couple other groups, and I've revamped it, and it has gone so much smoother since doing so. Question time. What's your favorite one-shot that you've ever played in or GM'd? And did it follow these rules, or did it break them? How is that special? That is all I've got for you. I hope you can follow these 5 steps to make your one-shots unforgettable. Make sure that what happened in that story doesn't happen to you. One last chance here to catch that alien one-shot, and one last chance to like and subscribe. Till next time, guys, gotta roll.